What would you do if your spouse emailed you in the dead of night, saying they've taken your $587,000 inheritance and left you for someone new, complete with a photo of them sipping wine at sunset? I'm Caleb Thornton, a 44-year-old commercial architect from Savannah, Georgia. My wife of 12 years, Elise, thought she'd pulled off the perfect escape, but she didn't count on me being one step ahead. This tale of betrayal and redemption will leave you stunned. Watch to see how I turned her deceit into something greater. And share your own stories of overcoming betrayal in the comments below. I've always lived for the art of creation. Growing up in Savannah's historic Ardsley Park, I was the kid sketching building facades while other children played tag. By 22, I was working for a local firm, learning to craft structures that could withstand time: hotels, libraries, community hubs. At 29, I founded Thornton Designs, a commercial architecture firm that became a trusted name across Georgia. My days are filled with blueprints, client revisions, and late-night renderings, but I thrive on it. By 44, I'd built a reputation for designing spaces that told stories, spaces that would endure for generations. To Elise, though, I was just a means to an end. It was 11:22 p.m. Arizona time when her email hit my inbox. I was in my home office, a cozy attic space with exposed beams, surrounded by drafting tools and a faint scent of cedar. Elise was supposedly at a yoga retreat in Sedona, a trip she'd framed as a spiritual reset. Her message was blunt. "I found someone who truly sees me. I've moved your inheritance to my account. It's better this way." Attached was a blurry photo. Her and a bearded man on a balcony, the desert sky ablaze with oranges and purples, wine glasses catching the light. Her smile cut deeper than her words, a radiant, carefree expression I hadn't seen in years, one she'd never offered me in our recent memories. I closed my laptop, descended the creaky stairs to the kitchen, and poured a glass of water. Through the window, I stared at our backyard, the cobblestone path I'd laid during a sweltering summer, the magnolias Elise had planted along the border, their blooms now wilting in the autumn chill. We'd poured our hearts into this home, or so I'd thought. Now it felt like a stage for a play that had ended without my knowing. That $587,000 wasn't just a number. It was the legacy of my Aunt Clara, who'd raised me after my parents passed in a car crash when I was 14. Clara worked double shifts at a Savannah hospital, her hands calloused from years of care, to send me to college. When she died, she left me everything, along with a note. "Make something that endures, Caleb." I glanced at my phone. No calls, no texts, just silence, as if Elise had already severed me from her life. The signs had been there for months. Her retreats growing longer, 2 days stretched to 4, then a full week. Her phone always face down, new passwords I wasn't privy to, conversations that ended the moment I asked a question. 3 months earlier, she'd started asking about the inheritance, where it was held, which accounts, if we should restructure it for better growth. I'd said I'd think about it, but I never followed through. I reread her email, noting the absence of a greeting, the coldness of her tone. I typed a simple reply, "Thanks for the heads up." Then I finished my water, climbed into our king-sized bed, its emptiness now a strange comfort, and drifted off. I slept better knowing she wasn't coming back. What Elise didn't realize was that I'd sensed her shift months ago, and the inheritance wasn't where she thought it was. Her betrayal had just given me the leverage I needed. Have you ever felt a betrayal brewing before it hit? Share your gut instincts below. I'm all ears. I met Elise 15 years ago at a design conference in Charlotte. She was launching her wellness brand, scouting architects for her first studio. I was 29, hungry for projects that felt alive, not just steel and concrete. We connected over shared dreams, or so I believed. We married 3 years later, settling in Savannah, where my firm was rooted. We bought a craftsman home on Habersham Street, its wraparound porch a dream Elise had cherished since childhood. We didn't have kids, her choice. "My brand is my baby," she'd say, and I respected it. My buildings were my children. After all, for 8 years, we were a power couple. I designed spaces that won awards. She built her empire of organic products and yoga retreats. We traveled to Italy, through dinner parties that sparkled with laughter, presented a flawless image to the world. Then Aunt Clara got sick, cancer, swift and brutal. I took a 6-month leave to care for her in Atlanta, spending days by her hospital bed, holding her hand as she faded. Elise visited twice. Hospitals sap my energy, she explained, her voice detached. I didn't push her. When Clara passed, her inheritance shocked me. I hadn't known she'd saved so much, invested so wisely over decades. Elise was shocked too, but her interest was different. We should use it to scale the business, she said one evening over dinner, her eyes gleaming with ambition. She meant her business, not ours. I need to honor Clara's wishes, I said, my voice firm. That was the first crack in our perfect facade, a fracture that would soon spiderweb into a full collapse. Have you ever had a partner dismiss your dreams for their own? Drop your story below. I want to hear it. The cracks deepened over time. Elise's trips multiplied. Research, supplier meetings, spiritual journeys. Her calls grew shorter, often with background voices that hushed when I asked who was there. A neighbor, Henry, stopped by one day while Elise was at a team retreat in Sedona. Saw someone drop her off last week, he said, handing me a loaf of his wife's sourdough. Pretty late. Thought you were out of town. I had been at a 3-day conference in Boston. I thanked him for the bread, didn't dig further, but stored the detail away. Then came the locked accounts, banking apps I couldn't access, passwords changed without explanation. Our talks about money became clipped, Elise shutting down when I pressed for clarity. One night, I found her on the phone in the backyard, her laughter soft and warm, a sound I hadn't heard in years. Just Sarah from a studio, she said, slipping inside. Sarah had left the business 10 months earlier. I didn't challenge her, just watched as she poured herself another glass of Pinot Grigio and changed the topic to the weather. Our marriage was unraveling, and only one of us was willing to admit it. Ever caught a partner in a lie that broke your trust? Share your moment below. I'm curious. 2 weeks before Elise's final retreat, my firm's financial advisor, Greg, called. Someone's been trying to access your trust accounts, he said. They used your info, but couldn't answer the security questions. I knew which accounts, the inheritance funds. Keep me updated, I said, my voice steady despite the storm brewing inside. That night, Elise suggested we simplify our finances. Too many accounts, too many passwords, she said, her eyes on her plate. We should consolidate. Good idea, I said, feigning agreement. I'll talk to Greg. The next day, I drove to Atlanta to meet Clara's attorney, Nora Bennett, who'd become my legal counsel after Clara's passing. I laid out my concerns, calmly, methodically, without emotion. Clara was wise to structure the inheritance in an irrevocable trust, Nora said, her tone reassuring. It's protected, no matter what happens in your marriage. And if someone tried to access it without authorization, that's attempted fraud, a serious legal issue. I nodded. Set up a monitoring system, I said. I want alerts for any activity, access attempts, transfers, anything. When I returned home, Elise was packing for her retreat. She gave me a fleeting kiss, her mind already elsewhere. I might extend this trip, she said at the door. Really dive into the practice. I helped her load her bags into her SUV, watch her drive away, then sat at my desk with my laptop. I didn't snoop through her messages or call her friends. Instead, I opened our shared cloud storage, a folder labeled Garden Project. There they were, screenshots of my accounts, bank statements, transfer protocol notes, a photo of a whiteboard with my inheritance minus 20%, labeled Transfer Fee Estimate. She'd been planning this for months, maybe longer. I closed the folder, walked through our house. Its polished floors and curated art a testament to a life we'd faked, and felt a clarity I hadn't known in years. The betrayal wasn't a shock. What surprised me was my own calm. Our marriage had become a transaction, and she'd just cashed out for a better deal. Have you ever found evidence of a partner's betrayal hidden in plain sight? Tell me below, I want to know. By the time Elise's email arrived 5 days later, I was ready. I waited 24 hours before acting. No impulsive reactions, just deliberate steps. I forwarded her email to Greg and Nora with a note. Please log this. Then I called Matthew Lang, a divorce attorney Nora had recommended months earlier during a what-if conversation. We met that afternoon in his downtown office, a sleek space with views of the Savannah River. Her email is a gift, Matthew said, reviewing the trust documents Nora had sent. The inheritance is protected, never mingled with marital assets, locked in a trust. Her admission of the transfer attempt strengthens your case. File for divorce, I said, my voice firm. Cite financial misconduct. I signed the paperwork before leaving. At 4:30 p.m., Elise called. You're making this harder than it needs to be, she said, her tone sharp. No hello. The money's already moved. Fighting it will just cost us both in legal fees. Where are you living now? I asked, deflecting. She faltered. What does that matter? Just curious where home is these days. Caleb, focus, she snapped. I've got a lawyer, Robert Ellis, working on settlement papers. Let's keep this simple. I noted the name. Thanks for letting me know, I said, my voice neutral. What are you doing? She asked, sensing my calm. Processing, I replied. She softened, misreading my tone. This is for the best, she said. We've been on different paths for years. I agree, I said. Simple is better. I hung up, called Matthew with the lawyer's name, and texted Elise, taking some time. We'll talk soon. Her reply was instant. Don't wait too long. Papers by Friday. 3 days away, just the timeline I needed. Ever had a partner underestimate you at their own peril? Share your story below. I'm listening. At 6 p.m., Nora called. The trust company recorded 3 transfer attempts today, all blocked, all logged. IP addresses, timestamps, the works. They traced to Scottsdale, Arizona, not Sedona. She paused. There's more. Last month, someone exported account details from your home network. I thanked her, hung up, and poured a glass of 20-year-old Scotch we'd saved for our 15th anniversary. Elise thought she'd outplayed me. She didn't know she'd walked straight into my snare. The next morning, Robert Ellis called, his tone measured. Mr. Thornton, I represent Elise. She indicates you're open to a straightforward settlement. Does she? I replied. What does she say about the inheritance? She provided statements, he said cautiously, and claims transfer confirmations are coming. Has she mentioned the trust? I asked. The legal impossibility of her claims? Silence. I suggest you confirm her story, I said. My attorney will send documents today. I hung up, drove to Riverfront Bank, and met with the manager, Linda, who'd managed our account for years. I need recent activity on our joint accounts, I said. Linda's expression darkened as she pulled up the records. There have been withdrawals over 3 months, she said. Small at first, $2,000, $3,500, then larger. The latest was $47,000 2 weeks ago. The transfers went to an account at Sun Valley Credit Union, one I didn't recognize. I requested 6 months of statements. Have you ever discovered a secret account your partner hid? Drop your discovery below. I want to hear. By noon, Matthew texted. Ellis wants an urgent meeting. He's nervous. Back at Matthew's office, the pieces fell into place. The Sun Valley account, opened 9 months ago in Elise's name, listed an apartment in Scottsdale. Total withdrawals from our joint accounts, $178,000. She's been building a new life, Matthew said. While still tethered to yours, I added. Ellis called during our meeting. My client may have overstated her ability to access the inheritance, he admitted. We'd like to discuss a revised approach. We filed for divorce, Matthew replied. Financial misconduct is evident. Ellis soon withdrew as Elise's counsel. No lawyer wants to touch a fraud case. The joint account theft would be part of the filing. I needed one more piece, who he was. Not for confrontation, but to understand the full scope of what I'd overlooked. That evening, a courier delivered Ellis's withdrawal letter. My phone buzzed Elise. I ignored her calls, then read her text. What have you done? I didn't reply. Nora emailed an update. The trust company confirmed multiple unauthorized access attempts over 3 months, now under criminal investigation. I forwarded it to Matthew. At 9 p.m., Elise texted again. We need to talk now. I replied, through your new lawyer. You're blowing this out of proportion, she wrote. I didn't actually move anything. The logs disagree, I responded. Who is he? After a 20-minute wait, she answered, Liam Carter. A friend helping me. You're focusing on the wrong thing. I searched Liam Carter, a yoga instructor in Scottsdale, former stockbroker turned wellness coach. Ever found out who your partner left you for? Share below, I'm curious. The next day, I met Henry. The guy who dropped Elise off, I said. Would you recognize him? Tall, bearded, gray Tesla, Henry said. I showed him the balcony photo. That's him, he confirmed. Saw him here 5 or 6 times while you were away. He agreed to provide a statement. At 11 a.m., Matthew called. Elise hired Victor Steele, tough divorce lawyer. He's pushing an emergency hearing, claiming all financial decisions were mutual. The hearing was set for Monday. I thought of the Scottsdale apartment, the secret account, Liam's visits. Let's give Steele something to chew on, I said. That afternoon, Matthew sent Steele a package, trust logs, bank records, the apartment lease, Henry's statement, and Elise's cloud storage notes. By 5 p.m., Steele requested a settlement meeting. He's spooked, Matthew said. Offers a split. She keeps what she took, you keep the rest. Counter, I said. She returns half the joint account money, signs an NDA, and I won't pursue fraud. Monday morning, Elise and Steele arrived at the courthouse, but there was no hearing. Matthew presented the settlement. Elise returns $89,275, makes no claims on the inheritance, signs an NDA. In return, I wouldn't pursue fraud charges. Through the glass, I saw her face as Matthew handed over the evidence, defiance melting into defeat. She signed, her hand shaky. I slid her an envelope. What's this? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Passwords, I said. Cloud storage, house alarm. Take what's yours. Her eyes searched mine for anger, found none, and she looked adrift. It was never about the money, I said. She left with Steele, clutching the envelope, never looking back. Have you ever settled a betrayal with quiet strength? Share below, I want to hear. 6 months later, I sold the Habersham house. A young family with twins adored the porch and magnolias. I moved to a loft downtown, steps from my office, keeping life minimal. Nora helped me channel Clara's inheritance into a foundation for architectural scholarships for kids who'd lost parents. The first recipient, a 17-year-old from South Georgia, wrote an essay about designing spaces for renewal. Clara would have been proud, Nora said at the awards ceremony. One day, I received an envelope, no return address. Inside, a check for $89,275 and a note. The rest I owed. Not just the money. No signature, but I knew. I deposited it into the foundation, another scholarship, another chance to build something lasting. That evening, I walked to the riverfront where Elise and I once dreamed of a joint venture, a wellness center I designed, she'd run. A dream long faded. My phone buzzed. Greg, dinner at 7? Bringing that architect I mentioned. I checked my watch. Time to walk home, change, and embrace what came next. Sometimes, the greatest response to betrayal isn't revenge, it's rising above. What's your take? Did I play this right? Or should I have pushed harder? Share your thoughts below, and if you've risen above a betrayal, I want your story. Subscribe and hit the bell for more.